Hey guys, I wanted to talk about the specific topic of how I see evangelicalism protecting predators because I see it a lot. And the reason that I was thinking about this topic so much recently is because of, conversation I've seen around Conor McGregor, specifically from Christian men. If you don't know who Conor McGregor is, he is a famous UFC fighter. He was found liable of sexual assault in 2024 in his civil case. And another detail I want to add is that there was medical evidence that confirmed that his victim, Nikita Hand, had had to have a tampon removed from a doctor due to how brutal this assault was from Conor McGregor. Okay, I was disappointed but not shocked when I saw him on Jimmy Fallon. Just I don't know, within the past month. Last year he was invited to the White House. Big shock. Birds of a feather flock together. Just how I watch people brush over this and act like it didn't happen is disturbing. Again, disappointing but not shocking. And you might ask, what the heck does this have to do with Christianity? Well, apparently Conor McGregor has found God as of recently, and I know many of you won't be shocked to hear that this is a common trope of a terrible man does something terrible, and then all of a sudden he finds God. All of a sudden he cares about religion and God so much, and a lot of times the terrible thing that they've done includes sexual assault. Being accused of it, being charged with it, being found guilty of it, being found liable, whatever it might be. We have watched this happen with Russell Brand. He was charged with rape, and all of a sudden, he got baptized and he found God. He even wrote a Christian book on how to become a Christian in 7 days, which is laughable to me. I probably don't need to be doing this many air quotes. But that title is laughable to me because it feeds right into the cliche of terrible man does a terrible act like sexual assault, and then all of a sudden he becomes religious. All of a sudden he cares so much about God. Now, am I going to claim that people who do specific acts can never be rehabilitated or can never change? No, I'm not going to say that. And I know this is like a highly controversial topic. Some people might get mad at me for saying I don't know. Some people might be like, they can be rehabilitated. I am not going to sit here and pretend like I know the answer to that. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm none of those things. So I don't really know how that works. But that even isn't part of the discussion, okay? I'm just saying I'm not ruling that out. But what does seem very transparent to me is when men want a very quick and drastic change to their reputation, it seems like they turn to religion and God. And why is that? I think a lot of us have some ideas. I believe it's because it provides them with a pathway of a quick and dramatic redemption, just very quickly rebuilding their reputation. They all of a sudden have a huge new fan group, aka a lot of times Christians. I've seen this time and time again. A man will do something terrible, like sexual assaults, and then all of a sudden he'll find God, he'll find religion, whatever, and then all of a sudden there's a huge group of Christians willing to go bat for them and like defend them like their life depends on it. I've seen this so often. They're just willing to stand up for them and say that he's changed because, God can change anyone and God is just that powerful that you better not even question if this person has changed, whatever. And that I'm seeing just that online. I was specifically seeing this from Christian men. So yeah, he is praising a rapist for his Christian comeback story. I wasn't very shocked to see this because as long as I can remember, I have seen this reaction to a terrible man suddenly turning to religion. All of a sudden, they get this new fan base of religious people praising them for finding God. In fact, the first time I realized how big of a problem this is within religion was due to a pretty extreme case. It was when I found out the late James Dobson, who, if you don't know who that is, I'm sure most of you probably do, is the founder of Focus on the Family. He went and prayed with Ted Bundy before Ted Bundy's execution. And of course, Ted Bundy had found God towards the end of his life after raping and killing over 30 women and children. And this is a great article, a quick read on this topic, and I could not agree more with the title that evangelical Christianity has become a safe space for sexual predators. And the article says something that I have said before, and that something is when evangelicals had no problem propping up a man who was found liable for sexual assault to be president and choose him as the Christian candidate, It wasn't random. This was already heavily ingrained into the evangelical movement. This was already a safe space for sexually violent men. And we know this. There's a history there. And when we see this through the Ted Bundy example, because James Dobson, and this is also in the article, essentially, and I knew this from actually watching, I don't know if you want to call it an interview, but he was like talking with Ted Bundy. He essentially painted Ted Bundy as this victim of progressive ideologies, one of those things being porn. And I don't think just only porn, but just like people wanting to be progressive, period. He painted Ted Bundy out more to be a victim than anything else, as if like if these things didn't exist, I don't know, maybe he'd be a good cuddly man. I don't know. But anyways, this isn't random because James Dobson is one of the most influential figures in the evangelical movement, and even that is an understatement, I feel like. He had such a big role on how so many evangelicals thought, and especially how so many evangelicals raise their children. So I just want you to keep that in mind. This has been a thing for a while. So, you know, Trump being found liable for sexual assault not being a deal breaker really shouldn't be shocking to anybody. Now, for me, it was shocking because I was a little naive to everything that was going on in religion, honestly, period. There's so much more I could say about that, but for now, that's all I will say. I could also go on about how Pete Hegseth's pastor, Doug Wilson, I've talked about him before, didn't tell his church that a child molester was within their church, going to their church. He withheld that information for months on months on months, while he was counseling this man and part of his church. And he actually then, eventually, when the man, I guess, got in trouble, he wrote a letter to the judge, and basically asked the judge to be measured and limited, and he vouched for the child molester, calling him things like completely honest. And then Doug Wilson officiated his wedding, the child molester, between him and a young woman. Now, I want to remind you that Doug Wilson has spoke at the Pentagon, and he's also the pastor who advocates for women losing the right to vote and all of that stuff. So really, really stand-up guy. And I'm sure most of you know that Trump's former spiritual advisor, Robert Morris, pled guilty in 2025 to child sex abuse charges. Is anyone shocked that Trump was spiritually advised by someone who was sexually abusing kids? I'm not. That's not shocking to me. Actually, that makes so much sense because, again, birds of a feather flock together. Anyways, back to the original post I talked about. This one. This is the first comment I saw when I clicked on this video. So somebody had commented on the video and said, "Me when Connor McGraper." And the creator response says, "Not gonna lie, I didn't know all that before this." I'm sorry, I typically don't like to call people liars, but I do not believe that at all. There's no freaking way that he didn't know that. He knew that he turned to Christ, but he didn't know that he was found liable for sexual assault. I have a hard time believing that. It was just cool seeing him repent to Christ. But y'all are always so negative, bro. If he really did that stuff, then I'm even more happy he's made new. So, two things. You all are so negative for pointing out the fact that you're praising a rapist for how amazingly spiritual he is now and finding God. That's a wild thing to call somebody negative for pointing that out. The other thing that really bothers me is I always hear them talk this way. If he really did it. And I know that is basically them saying maybe he didn't do it, maybe he did, I don't know. Even if somebody is found liable or guilty, they say stuff like this. And it's really disturbing. Again, disappointing, not shocking. But this is just a great example as to how a lot of Christian men respond when a sexual predator turns to God. They're basically in the business of protecting these men when they do these things. And yeah, I'm seeing this response a lot from Christian men in regards to Conor McGregor. I mean, it all, if you are actually looking at all of it makes sense. They do the same thing for Donald Trump. They claim that he didn't do it. They claim that he's innocent, or they say if he did do it. Yeah, it's the same type of response. And I've also been thinking about this because of another man of faith. I'm doing so many quotations today. I don't know if they're all warranted, but I guess I'm just like in this mood. And that man of faith is Andrew Tate / the Tate brothers. They were arrested again for all these horrific things. Now the Tate brothers are Muslim, they aren't Christian to my understanding, but Islam carries the same issues as Christianity does in this regard, and if you want to disagree with me, you can argue with a wall because there's no way that I would think any different, to be honest. But the funny thing is, I cannot tell you how many Christian men I have seen stand up for Andrew Tate as if like Andrew Tate is their own brother or something, or some kind of saint or some kind of hero that needs saving. It's absolutely disgusting because his entire thing is trafficking women, abusing women, being violent towards women. And this isn't shocking once again because these two belief systems, they have this type of thing in common. It also isn't shocking that the Trump admin is like this with the Tate brothers and one of Trump's sons and the Tate brothers. I don't want to go into their whole backstory, but if you know anything about them, you know they're basically, especially Andrew Tate, is basically the head of the Red Pill movement, which basically tells you that they hate women. I don't know how else to say it. They hate women and they spew hatred about women. And I think a lot of the reason that Christian men tend to stand up for Andrew Tate and his brother, I guess, is because red-pilled ideologies have become so intertwined with Christianity, it's not even funny because they're both seen as like traditional things, but at the same time they're not. Because some of the stuff they, like for example, Andrew Tate will preach that, you know, you can have as many women as you want, but a woman should only have one man and stuff like that, which it's weird that that's part of the red pill content, but a lot of Christian men take that in. It's not weird in the sense that it is built upon misogyny in the same exact way, but it's just funny because so many of the traditional Christian men in the United States will say that you should only be faithful to one woman. Whatever. You get the point of what I'm saying. If you don't know about their backstory, you should look it up because it's actually just like the most insane thing you could ever imagine. But again, them being close with the Trump admin, them being close with Trump's son, once again, birds of a feather flock together. I know I'm repeating myself a lot in this video, but it is what it is. My entire point is that there are very obvious reasons as to why these men run to religion when this stuff happens. It's an opportunity for them to get to have a do-over without actually having to do anything to redeem themselves. They can say, God forgives me, and I found God, and then they get welcomed with open arms because the evangelical movement is used to protecting sexual predators. I mostly talk about evangelicalism in this specific video, but let's be honest, it happens a lot in religion, considering the reputation of the Catholic Church. We don't need to get all into that right now, but we know this is a pattern. A lot of people deny this, but it is a pattern. Anyways, according to evangelical narratives, these men, if they have really found God, they get to live in a forever paradise when they die. But if they're victims, aren't convinced God is real, then they get to burn in hell for all of eternity, and Christians want you to believe that is justice. That they want you to believe that is justice and that is good. I'm sorry, you'll never convince me that is just or good. And just think about the fact that, you know, if Ted Bundy meant what he said when he died, he's partying up in heaven right now with God. Gets to hang out, chill, have the best time of his life. And if any of the women or girls that he raped and murdered didn't believe, weren't convinced God was real, well, tough luck. They committed the ultimate sin of not believing in God and giving him his validation, so you must burn in hell for all of eternity. This is why my entire point of this is why I don't think these spaces are safe for women. I mean, this is the result of something being built upon patriarchy. This is why I talk about feminism so much within this, just the entire topic of religion, because it impacts every part of the religion, if I'm being honest about what I think about it. And it's not safe for women, and it's not safe for anybody who's a victim of sexual violence, not just women. And you can't convince me otherwise. Again, this shouldn't have to be stated, but of course, I'm not saying all Christians will be rape apologists. I'm not saying all Christians will stand up for these kind of men or protect them. But even if they don't, I really want people who are a part of evangelicalism to ask themselves why the culture of evangelicalism is one that these men run to find safety. I just want people to think about that. Even if you are Christian, even if you are evangelicalism, why do these predators feel safe to turn to that system whenever they are faced with these things that they have done, or like they have to actually take accountability for things that they have done like this? Just something to think about. I also want to say on top of that, these people are genuinely trying to convince me. So first they're trying to convince me the system is just, right? All of this is just and good. But on top of that, they're trying to convince me that heaven is a place I should want to go to. Meanwhile, these men are apparently there. They want me to go to this place where all of these rapists are living happily for eternity, and I should want to go there while their victims are burning in hell forever for all of eternity, and I should want to go to heaven with the rapists who just happen to believe in God or find God after they rape or murder or whatever they do to other people. That's crazy. I don't want to go to an afterlife with these people. And I remember seeing, this was, I don't know. I mean, I've seen it randomly, but this was also a while ago. I would see all these videos about how people like Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer, like, yeah, they might be in heaven. Like, if they really meant it, they're in heaven. Why would I want to go somewhere where those are the people who are welcomed with open arms, and yet the people they murdered and sexually assaulted are burning in hell because they committed the grave sin of not giving God his validation? That's sick. Like, it's nothing besides sick and twisted. You can probably tell that this specific thing gets me so worked up, and I think there's obvious reasons it gets me worked up, but also it was just such a defining moment for me when I realized that when I was still a Christian, and like a progressive Christian, whatever that means, I guess, that, you know, being a sexual predator was not a deal breaker for so many people around me, or they just denied it completely. That was super disturbing to me, and I was very shocked by that. But looking back, I just didn't know. I didn't know enough. I was a bit naive, and when I say a bit, I mean really naive. Again, I'm not saying like every single Christian is like that, but what I am saying is there's a reason these men run to that system, and this isn't brand new, shocking. This isn't a brand new, shocking thing that happens, or this isn't brand new, shocking information. It's always been there. So yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you think, and if you have seen this, who you've seen it about. But yeah, I hope you all are doing okay. I hope you're taking care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one. And I know some of you are gonna ask what my shirt says, so it says, if you're being mean to me, this is who you're being mean to, so keep that in mind when you're commenting on this video.